Class 9, another one down. We did only one chapter this time. I think next time actually has 3 chapters. They're not very big, but there's 3 chapters for the next class. And then obviously I'm going to do some live coding. So this one's talking about unit testing, what it is, why it's important. We are for JavaScript right now, we are using the Jest testing suite. And then we do need to talk about what this test-driven development is, and kind of why it's so important. So these are the key things that if you kind of learn from this unit, this is what you need to talk about. The hard part for me is, yes, I absolutely want you to be able to write tests. But I will be very honest with you. I want to say 80 to 90% of you, if you go into software engineering, will not write a test for the first 6 months. So no, you're not expected as an entry person to be this excellent test writer. Other people will be helping you with that. So the actual like writing of the test, you don't have to worry about as much, but the concept you absolutely have to understand. This is easily a topic that comes up quite a bit in interviews. So you want to understand the big picture. You do not have to understand like how to write a test in Jest, in the Jest library. So regression, you'll hear that word. So regression, if you think, if you're making progress on something, of course we're talking about code, but this vocabulary word works for everything. If you're making progress, such as like my son hurt his ankle or whatever else playing soccer, he's making progress, getting better, and then all of a sudden there's a setback, like he hurt his ankle again. That's called regression in his progress. So that's just the English word regression is going backwards. So it's like almost the opposite of making progress. And so regressions, we don't want those in code because we just made this excellent feature and it's out to production. It works amazing. Clients like it. And then we are working on some other feature. And then what we are working on now actually broke the other feature that we just did. So that's called regression in code because you're going backwards. You're not going forwards. So we do what we call regression testing, which tests that the new feature that I'm coding right now is not messing with the other features that have already been implemented and work. So you set up tests around all of those features so that no matter what, when you push your new code, it's going to run those automated tests to see what you just pushed up, is it breaking the stuff before? So that's regression and regression testing. There is this concept of if you write good enough tests, then that is actually your documentation of what your feature should do. So if I say that I write a test for the rock, paper, scissors, which I'll go over in a little bit, but rock, paper, scissors, if I say that a rock beats scissors and scissors beats paper and paper beats rock, and I test those, then anybody looking at my test would be like, even if they had no clue what rock, paper, scissors are, then they would know what this program is supposed to do just based on the test. So that's what it's talking about, test as documentation. If you write good enough tests and detailed tests, anybody can just read through your test and be like, oh, I understand what this program should be doing. We do need to know that we're using the Jest framework library testing suite. I never know the exact wording for that, but it's definitely a testing suite. When you're writing test cases, there are 3 common things that you're thinking about. There's what I consider the happy path. When you type this in, it does this. And that's, if people actually typed in what they're supposed to, this is how it should behave. That's the positive test. This is what it should be working positively. The negative is, well, what if they typed in something wrong? Then what should it really do? So if I typed in some letters instead of numbers, I'm expecting it to actually go bad, which is the negative case. So you actually write in the test, you expect it to go bad. And then really, when you become like your QA people, and I would actually suggest some of you that like breaking things to potentially think about doing a QA job rather than a software engineering job. The QA's job is usually they're the ones that are really good at making the edge cases. Now, in some of our examples, because they're so small, it's kind of hard. But your edge case is that kind of wiggle room. Like if you're talking about positive and negative numbers, 0 is kind of like that edge case. Well, is 0 a positive or a negative? How are you going to handle it? Some of the other, like the edge case would be with rock, paper, scissors, if you threw in something that's not rock, paper, scissors. So if I have time today, I will go over job titles. I don't think I'm going to have time today to do job titles, but it is on my like to-do list that when I have time to talk about openly in front of everybody. Definitely post some questions in the lecture questions channel, and I'll slowly try to get those job things open. But it is on my radar to talk about different jobs. Now, this test-driven development. The whole point with this is you should have clearly defined goals for your program. So for rock, paper, scissors, you need to be able to put in rock, paper, and scissors. You need to be able to check which one beats which one and then give an output back to the user. So you're going to write tests even before you write your code. You're going to say, if player 1 picks rock and player 2 picks scissors, that the test is going to do that player 1 wins because they picked rock. And you're going to write that test out even before you write the code. And that's why if you write the test before the code, the next line there that says red, green, refactor, the first time you run your test suite, because you have not implemented the code yet, it should be red. It should fail. So it's perfectly fine to get your test to fail first because you know that you did not implement it, so it should not work. And then what you do is you write your code to get your test to be green, to get the green check mark. And then afterwards, and this is another reoccurring theme, anytime you write code, your first objective is just to get it to work. It's always your first objective. But whenever you really get into the job market, you should always be thinking about, well, how can I make my code better? And that's what the refactor part is. You're always thinking about, okay, now I got it to work. How can I make it better? This is, I think, straight out of the book, but I'll go over this. So you're going to create a blank test function. You're going to give the test a name that is clear, and it's a testable statement. So when you do this, this is what you expect. Come up with test data that will trigger the desired behavior. So if player 1 picks rock, player 2 picks scissors, that's going to describe the behavior. Think about what is needed, then write code. So then it should say that player 1 wins because player 1 picked rock over scissors. So think about what is needed, write code. So I'm going to write my code statement. But based on just that one test, I'm not actually writing the full rock, paper, scissors game. I'm just writing rock beats scissors. That's the only thing I would write. And then I have a green check mark. And then I got to think of, oh, well, what other possibilities are there? And write that as a test and then write the code. So this is a 100% different mind shift than what we're used to of writing the whole entire rock, paper, scissors game. We're going to write it in pieces. Does rock beat scissors? Rock beat scissors. Does scissors beat paper? And then you're going to code scissors beat paper. You're going to keep running the test. You're going to run the test before the code to see it fail. Then you're going to implement the new code. And then you're going to run the test to see it pass. And then you need a review to see if refactor is needed. So I think I typed these up just to make sense on what you're doing here. These are example of test cases. So if you're talking about an add function, and obviously this is kind of the function you're looking for. What you're looking for is the positive case would be if I typed in 2 and -3, it should return -1. So positive is if I typed in what I wanted, it should return what I expect. The negative is more or less it should not be. So if I type 1 and 5, everybody knows that it should be 6, and I could use the positive case that it should return 6, but I could also write it in the negative where we're expecting it not to be less than 6 or greater than 6. So that's that negative case. And then the edge case is if they typed in like a 5 as a string, it would actually return 52. So we would check to make sure that it's at least doing what we expect, whether that's what we want it to do or we don't want it to do. So edge case would actually be that it returns 7, but then we'd have to program in our code to say, if you get a string, change it to a number before you add it. So same thing here, positive, if it's even or odd. If I type in -4, it should return even. The negative would just, if I typed in 13, it should not be even. So remember, negative is not, you're expecting the negative case. And then like an edge case would be, well, what if you typed in 2.5? You know, what should it be? And I'm not saying that 2.5 is odd. I'm saying in this code that I have written, it would return odd. But these are the edge cases that you guys have to figure out. Well, what if they type in 2.5? What do we want to do? How do we want to handle that, etc.? Like I said, short and sweet with the slides. Oh yeah, and I forgot to change this. They used to use Jasmine, but now they use Just, so just ignore that. I'll change that before I print out the slides. Like Jamarco said, your normal thing, and then to do today is technically graded assignment 2. Just like last time, I will be sticking around. Originally, I was gonna have to go to an orchestra practice, but it got canceled. So I will be sticking around. If you have GitHub related questions, feel free just to message me those. I like dealing with those. I will go over, actually, what's the best way? I do want to talk about some of the common ones I've been seeing. I wish I had a visual. That's what I was thinking, is I wish I could bring up a visual of those, but I can't right now because they're in private messages and I don't want to share the private messages up on the screen for you. Yeah, I'll talk about those. Live coding. Okay, let's get out of this. Checking the thing. Does figuring out edge cases get easier with practice? It absolutely does. But on the other hand, if you're part of an actual development team, usually that's your project manager because they know the system really well. They'll be able to tell you what the edge cases are, or you'll be working with a QA, a quality engineer. I think that's quality assurance. Yeah, there you go, quality assurance. And then they are really good at finding those edge cases and breaking your stuff. Like that's what their job is to find all the edge cases to break your stuff. So it does come easier as a programmer because you're seeing other people break your stuff and you're like, well, I don't want them to do that. So then you get better at it. Instrument, I play percussion, piano and accordion as well, but percussion is what I play in orchestra. Okay, because somebody asked about it and I have it right here, I will talk about these. I think that somebody's referring to this right here. So trim leading trail white space. So what that means is instead of you typing in this, you're going to put some white space in between here and at the end and rerun it to see what happens and modify for that. If the ID part cannot be converted as a number, you're right that all of these have been typed in as a number. So what you're going to do is you're going to type in letters here and write a test, and then it should return -1 if there's letters here. That these two are not programmed from that's not handled by this. Return this if there's more than one. So obviously they put in only one set. So you need to take this and put it somewhere over here and put in another set and then program in here. How can you tell if there's two? Do not include these symbols in the value assigned to the raw data. So I think it does the first one, but it doesn't do the second one. So this one's just a very minor change. And then anything besides numbers are present. So then again, raw data, right now, it does return a number, but it returns like undefined, where you want it to actually return -1. So there's just a minor change where you actually want it to return -1. Right above. in the blue. Oh, and these, the test values we used was missing this. Add the test covers. Oh, you're saying like if you do these, it should be similar to these? Maybe. I didn't even look at this. Yes, so you're right. Some of these -1 ones would be caught by here. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. That's what I was
No, you're
asking.
good.
Is the examples in that blue box right there. So it says to add more tests to cover those cases, but I noticed, I guess, by what they provided, several of those 1 through 4, nope, and above that.
Yeah.
Yep, those. Some of those are already covered by the logic we wrote for the ones that were already given. Does that make sense?
Some of them, yes. Like this one, because it doesn't have an entry. You're right. Yes. I think this one would still pass based on what you have above.
Yeah, I was able to write one for that one, but like I said, the number 1 would already fail because it doesn't start or end with
Yeah, all of
the
these three. Yeah.
right. So they would be covered. I
Okay.
couldn't write a new case for that.
Yeah, that's why I skipped over this. This didn't make as much sense as this.
Okay.
So these I would go. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Let's do some example stuff. Hopefully I can remember. I'm gonna keep this on the side. All right. We're just gonna open up VS Code and start typing. If I can get my VS Code up. So my goal is to go kind of fast through the check 5 and the RPS, the rock, paper, scissors. Then we'll take about a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to come back and do this class 9, which is the thing that I said that I'm going to actually write over. So that's the game plan. I'm not really going to go over the transmission things. I didn't see a lot of questions on that, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. If we have time at the end, I might go over it. Okay, so the check 5 was obviously the easiest one. They already gave us the function. I will zoom in a little bit. So they already gave us the function. It more or less is checking to see if the number you type in is 5. So it lets the result to be blank. If this, it says 5 is or whatever the number is less than 5, whatever is equal to 5, whatever is greater than 5, return results. I think the only thing we had to do in this is actually export it. And I don't know how, I don't think they wrote any tests. So yeah, we can do it either way. So you can either export it as the function or as an object. Remember, if I do check 5 as a function, when I call it over here in the test, it's going to be just slightly different than if I do the object. I'll show you both of those. So here, the first thing I'm going to do is say, this is where I get a little, I think every team I've worked on does this a little bit different. I do want to show this just because, I need 2 dots to go backwards 1. So 1 dot is in the same directory, 2 dots, it says go back 1. So then I would do the, why is it not? I usually like it to autofill because many of you have had problems. There it is. The autofill guarantees that I'm in the right spot. So if you hand type this, sometimes you get the wrong thing. And then what I always have to do, because I don't know the test things, I always grab an example of one and then start modifying it. Right. So this is check 5. So I think there's a few different things that we can do here. Ooh, let versus const. I guess you could do, yeah. Usually your const means you don't want it to change. Because I don't want it to change, const is probably a better one. Yeah. I think for convention, it would be better to use const. because again, like I said, we don't want this to change. We don't want to ever mess with this because we're testing it. So I would use const. Now, will it still work if you do let? It will, but should you? Probably not. So. Hold on, I'm getting my other screen set up real quick. All right. So when we're talking about the check 5, I think there's just 3 cases: less than, greater than, or equal to. So let's do the equal to first. 5 fat fingers should return. It actually should return a custom message. What message are we wanting to do? When I'm also really bad at naming these. Return 5 is equal to 5. Should return 5 is equal to 5 because we're going to put in 5. So expect, so this is checking. This is the function, which is test. I'm going to type in 5, and I'm expecting it to be 5 is equal to 5. And then I go down here. I change my thing. CD, where am I at? Exercises. And then I think this is it. Yeah. So then I'm going to do npm test. So I'm purposely going to make a lot of mistakes here in a second. So just so you know, down here it says jest is not recognized as an internal or external command. Does anybody know what usually causes this error? Yeah, I need to install jest. I haven't done that. So I'm going to go down here again and do npm install. I'm typing out install just because it makes more sense. If I was doing this on my own, I would use npm I because I like shortcuts. All right. So now I should be able to do npm test. And it's saying some weird stuff. Did it run even the right thing? Oh, so also, do you notice there's 2 testing suites? There's actually, so it says RPS test. So that's not the one we want. And this one's also messing up. And this does go back to right before you guys did all of that stuff. You could, I guess you could do npm test and then actually put the test name. I think what I've seen, I'm hoping this is the reason this isn't working. Somebody said before, whenever I named this test, do you see how this function here inside jest is also called test? Yes, these will conflict. Now, on the other hand, in doing some Googling, most of the time here, I don't see test. Does anybody know what else I can use instead of test? Did you guys see anything else there? Yeah, IT. I tried to look up what this was and why is it called IT, and I didn't find a good answer. So if somebody has that and has an article, post that in Discord. But I don't know why it's called that, but that is what I've seen. So let's run it again. Okay, it at least ran this time, but I did a typo. There's supposed to be a dot after here. Okay, 1 passed, 1 total. Now remember, this one failed is due to the RPS test. So don't worry about that for a second. One passed, one test. So I did the equal to case. I have no clue. So on this, return, let's pick a number 2. 2 is less than 5. And that's what I want it to return. And so I'm going to put 2 here. I'm going to run it. And it passed. Right? So that means my code's doing what I want it to do. Let's do 15 greater than 5. Oh. Let's run this thing. Oh, that's partly because I didn't change my test. So it's common mistakes when you're copying and pasting. You always want to make sure this is what I'm actually testing and this is what I expect the output to be. So I'm going to say if I throw in 15, and it passed. Somebody did bring up another test that I should be doing. If I really am trying to test things, I also need to make sure that trailing spaces, like if I did this, if that's okay. So I'm going to change this just so it's slightly different, but 17 is greater. Let's see if that works. And the reason why this works is because I did not put it in as a string. So when you throw a number in there, it doesn't really look at white space. White space is only looked at in strings. So yeah, so it doesn't really matter on that one as much because I am that. We're supposed to change the test code. I am just having fun here and playing. And the reason why I learn the most whenever I just sit here and play with what they give me, I don't think they gave you the test cases here. Did they give you the test cases or did you have to make these? I can't remember. Yeah. Okay, so they did give you examples. Okay, so some key highlighted things that I wanted to make sure you guys knew. If you are calling just that one function, you can call it just like this. If you call it as an object, let's try to go back and do the if you call it as an object. So whenever I exported this and I said export check 5, if I would have returned this, remember these signify that it's as an object inside there. Now, if I run my test, it'll actually fail. And the reason why is it doesn't really know. It says that test is not a function. Test is now an object. And then I got to go through here and put in the function of the test that I'm doing. And again, what I would recommend is always export as an object, because then you always do this. Where if you do the function sometimes and do the object sometimes, it gets a little weird. All right, I'm back to passing these. All right, so I went over how to declare the test. If you do an object, you have to do the dot method that you want to call. You put in what it is. To be is usually a string value that you want to do. I will hopefully show you a couple different ones here that's not to be, so you can see those. All right, I think this one was pretty straightforward, so I'm gonna move on to the rock, paper, scissors test. So again, what I don't like about these what I do like about the transmission one is you are, even though they're giving you all the code, you're writing the test first and then you're writing the code. That is how this whole unit should be, because it's talking about test-driven development. So I'm fine with us being able to write the test, but I think the process of this is they should have almost given you a lot of the tests, and then, you know, it's okay that they give you part of the code like they did on the transmission, but that's the kind of mindset that you should be getting into with test-driven development. So the export, so just like this on the Who one, whenever I export this, if I just do Who one, that would export just that one function. If I want to export it as an object, I do this. But the other reality is, when you do this, if you had another method, you can add it in, or another function. I'm just making something up on the spot just so you can see that it comes up. But so if I have more than one function, so I have the Who one function and then I have the call number function. If you do this, you can actually do both of them. And again, the book wants you to do it like this. And what this does is, this is your key. This is what gets shown to the world. And this is the value that gets ran when the world calls this one. So as it exports, it only shows these. And then as they call it, it actually does these. So again, I could say call number internal. So this is the function that it calls, but on the outside, you would only see this. You would not see this name on the outside. If your naming conventions are good enough, you can just do this, where the external and the internal are the same thing. Okay. I can leave that there if I really want to. So I'm going to plop some tests here. Don't get kind of too frustrated at me. The whole reason I'm doing this is we've already done a lot of this. So I think this is where I copied and pasted this from somewhere. All right, I'm going to go through this real quick. The other thing I'm going to do is, since this says test, I'm going to change all of these to IT. I think in the book, I actually saw both of them. It's weird. I don't think they were consistent. These are ones that I grabbed from somewhere. So I stole this from LaunchCode somewhere. It says returns player 2 wins if player 1 is rock and player 2 is paper. And so then it says let the output. So this is another thing that you can talk about. You can set the output to be this, or it doesn't. And on this, I really don't, there's no preference here. Or you can just put the test thing right inside the expect. It does not matter which one you do. If this is not too long and it's still very readable, I like this one better. But it does not matter. Okay. Yes, there's several of these, to be and to equal, and I'll show you some other ones. It's just the type of object that they're expecting. So to be, I think, is for strings. If somebody else wants to look that up, especially, I might look that up during our little 5-minute break and show you and then look that up. But so the whole purpose of this, these should work. I think somebody commented that there was a typo right here where there was an extra space after rock. So make sure that you were supposed to fix that. And some people wouldn't have even noticed that unless you had tests. The whole point that they were talking about is if you write the test correctly, your test would have caught that at least this was wrong. It would not have said, oh, delete the space. It wouldn't have been that specific. But whenever you typed in player 1 scissors and player 2 rock, instead of it saying player 2 wins, it would have skipped that and it would have said player 1 wins. So when you're writing your test, it would have told you the wrong thing. So you should have questioned, well, why is that? And that is the point of test, is if I make a mistake somewhere, it catches that it's not doing the expected behavior. Let me see if this runs. Oh, there's one failing. Oh, that's the one I just fixed. Did it not fix it? Oh, I didn't say, okay, hold on. That was. So the test failed. I knew that I didn't do it right. So I go back and I fix it and now the test passed. I think the only other thing that I was thinking about with this test, so somebody posted an amazing question. If we wanted to check every version of rock, paper, scissors between two players, not the exceptional ones, so just who won and who tied, like player 1, player 2 win and tied. I think there are 9 possible cases. And so the question was, do I need to write 9 tests? And the answer is, in a perfect world, yes, but you can combine some of them. So I wanted to show you how I would combine them real quick. I would have done returns player 2 wins if, and then I would have put the different situations here. So my screen's too big. Hold on. What I would have done is in the same test, I'm going to go out just a little bit because you don't need to read the exact little code as much as see the big picture. So I'm going to make, what are all the different ways that player 2 could win? And I would put it here. So paper beats rock, rock beats scissors, and scissors beats paper. And what I've done here is I am doing 3 different tests, but this whole entire check will fail if any of these fail. All I did there was group it. That's all. I'm still checking all 3, checking to see if player 2 wins. Let's just run that so you can kind of see. It still passed all 9. If I said scissors should beat scissors, I want to show you what it looks like when it fails. It'll say here, do you see how it's checking all 3 of these at the same, like one after another technically, but it's grouping all of these together, and it says that it failed this test. So it's one technical test that's expecting 3 different things to happen. So you still need to check all 9, 10, including if they put something besides rock, paper, or scissors in there. But this is how I would organize and group it. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense on the test. I'm going to open this up because I think it might be the thing that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But it's been a little bit, and to be honest, my next little bit is me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come right back. I have started brand new. So over here, I'm going to expand this really big. Not that, this. Here we go. So over in my file over here, what I did was I created a folder called class 9, and I put a class 9 JavaScript file in it. I'm going to go ahead and make a new file that's called class9.test.js. I will be copying and pasting some code. So this next part will go a little fast, but again, you're not supposed to sit here and type it out as much as just kind of soak it in. That's all you're doing. You actually, everything I show you on the small little bit of like all the details, you will not have to do. But in the big picture, it will help you if you're trying to answer questions about tests. So here in a second, I'm going to create a project right in front of you. Hopefully it works. I do have an answer key that I made up. I'm going to create a program and test, and I will share the code afterwards because I think that might help people. Create an object that, so I'm going to create an object. I'm going to make this 2 lines. Create an object that has all the words in it and has the word as the key and the type as the value. This should not make sense to English, but whenever I explain it when we get back, this will make sense. I'm going to pass in 3 objects to it, and it's going to combine all 3 objects into one big object. That's what this is going to do. And then this one is going to create an object that actually categorizes the type. So that, again, doesn't make sense right now. I will give you an example here in a second. But let's go ahead and take about a 5-minute break. It's 6:22 Central Time, so it's 6:27. I'm going to start back. So if you want to go get a restroom break, get a water break, I'm going to look up this real quick. Thank you for trying to give me a word wrap, and I could probably do it. I'm being lazy right now, to be honest, but I did hit Alt Z, and it's turning on my GeForce experience. So I think it's a Windows hotkey for my video stuff. So thank you for trying that. I'll figure it out. I'm going to be definitely. I'm going to pull the lazy card and not do it. Again, I have a class. My goal is, okay, so this will help explain kind of what I'm doing a little bit better. I'm going to take these three objects, and what they are there's words and categories. So like blue is a color, rabbit is an animal, rock is like a music genre, green is a color, classical is a music genre, elephant's an animal, etc. So I'm going to take these answers that I got, from hypothetical students, and I want to put them all in one big object. That's what I'm going to do first. The second thing I'm going to do is I need to grab all the different categories that they have given me and make an array so that I know what categories they are, of just unique ones. Because like there's animal, animal, and animal. I don't want that showing up 4 times in my array. I just want animal. And then lastly, I'm going to rewrite an object that has the categories as the keys. And then anything here, such as animal, would be the key. And then anything that they put in that was an animal, like rabbit, elephant, dog, and deer, it would be an array of those values. So again, step 1, make one big object. Step 2, grab all the unique categories. And then step 3, make another object that the categories are the keys with an array of strings inside the object. So I'm not expecting you guys to be able to do this on your own. I made this up to do several things. I'm hopefully going to talk about how to do testing. I'm going to talk about how to set up an environment to run a test. And then I'm also going to talk about objects and arrays and how to iterate through them, because to be honest, graded assignment 2 has some of these things in it. I am not going over assignment 2, but if you pay attention enough, you will see the hints that I drop in here about graded assignment 2. So so what I'm going to do first, because I know what I want in the end, I need to create a test, run my test, and make it fail. So the first thing I'm going to do is move inside my, okay, and then I'm going to do npm test, and it's going to tell me I have no clue what you're talking about, and I'm going to say, well, maybe it's because I don't have a test in here. So what I'm going to do, and again, I'm copying and pasting these things. I'm not expecting you guys to have this. And I will explain my tests here in a second. I have a cheat code next to me, so just know. What I am doing for my test, I'm grabbing my test 9. I have 3 different objects. They're different sizes, different everything than what I passed in before. And here is my combined object. If you take this, you would see blue color, rabbit, animal, rock, green, rock, whatever. And if you look down here, it's the same one. And I purposely changed the order here because objects. Okay, so that's another key hint. So here's a dabble here. Arrays, order matters, and you have an element type, like an element ID. For instance, here, I'll put this one in here because I'm going to use it later. My category array, animal is in element 0. Genre is in element spot 1, and color is in element spot 2. Arrays are ordered. Objects are not. I can have an array, and this is very perfect. You can have animal here and animal here in an array. There's no problem, because what this if you think about key value pair, this is your key is 0, and that's your value. Your key is 1, this is genre. Key is 2, key is 3. So your keys are unique. When you talk about objects, these keys have to be unique. Meaning, if I make this down here and make it a different thing, it won't know whenever I try to call elephant which elephant it's talking about. So we aren't calling these by order. I'm not saying what's the first element in the object. What I'm saying is, I don't care about the order. What is the classical object? And then it would say, well, that's a genre. So the keys on an array are the indices, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we don't see. The keys here we have to declare. And then the values are these. So that's a huge hint to you that the objects, you can't do objects bracket 0 because there is no 0 there. I can't do bracket 1, but I can do bracket classical because it knows what that is. It would give me genre. So objects are not ordered. So to go back, if I have these 3 things, this is what I'm expecting in the output. So I made a test. I said combine objects, combine any number of objects into 1. So I threw my 3 objects in. And this is the one that if you're doing objects, because the order does not matter. If I was doing an array, I can do the 2 equal and it'll set them equal. But because I'm doing an object, you cannot do 2 equal because they're not actually equal. They have to look inside each of the keys and values to see if they're equal. Right. So if I run this, I think it still won't run, and it's due to the thing that we did before. But I want to go through the whole startup, because if I did npm install, it will not do npm install. So you guys want to type up why it will not do npm install? Yeah, there's no package.json. The fastest way to create one is if you do npm init, initialization. That's what it means, initial. When I do this, it's going to ask me a series of questions. And if it's in parentheses, like this, this is what it's going to set unless I say anything other. So this is the default. I'm fine with class 9. I'm class with version 1. I'm not going to write a description. Class 9 should be the entry point. Test command, I'm going to type jest because I am going to use the test suite. I'm not going to tie it to a repo. None of that. Yes. So now I'm going to do npm install. And then I'm going to do npm test. And it says jest is not recognized. So remember, your package.json tells it what to put in there, but I never told my package.json. It says when I say npm test that it's going to use jest, but I don't have it as a dependency. Okay. Here's the other problem. Test suites should not go under dependencies. They should go under development dependencies. So let's look at this other package JSON. On this one, it says the dependency is readline sync, but it actually puts the jest under the development dependencies. And this is due to, I only want to test in my development environments. Whenever I push this out to production, I don't want that extra weight of that test suite that's never going to run in production out in production. So I only want the test into like whenever I'm developing. So the way to add that instead of doing npm install jest, this will install it to my dependencies. I'm going to say I want it only for development, which you can Google this. It's hyphen capital D. This says set it up as a development dependency. So if I do this, now it's installing some things. And then whenever I look at my package.json, when it's done, it is added in the development dependencies, my jest. So now I can run npm test, and I'm hoping that it fails. And again, saying that I hope something fails should be common language to you. I know several of you feel weird about saying that it's okay if something fails, but when we are testing and we are doing things iteratively, meaning piece by piece over and over, it's going to fail. That's fine. So this is saying, hey, I don't know what combine objects is. And that's because over here in my file, I've only set up the objects, but I have not set up my thing. Okay? So because we are a little shorter on time than I'd like, I'm going to try to do my best on creating this right in front of you. So I have a function. I'm going to call it combine objects, because that's what I called it in my test suite. I am going to throw in 3 objects, object 1, object 2, and object 3. If you are trying to type along with me, I don't know if you'll be able to comprehend what I'm doing and type. So watch the video and look at my code afterwards. But so I want to combine all these. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to declare a new object that says new combined object. Combined, I think that's spelled right. And I'm going to put, nope, no, this means it's an array. I don't want to do that. I want an object. So I'm going to do this one. So anytime you're trying to build something, you usually start off with it being blank. And then at the end, I'm going to return it. And then I'm going to put it, I'm going to actually build it inside in between these two things. This is logically how I'm doing this. Now, do I always write the return statement at the beginning? I don't always, but I want you to think through this logically. I'm trying to build this object, and that's what I'm trying to return. Okay? Open up some more space. So I'm going to go ahead. If I want to combine the objects, this is logic. I'm not expecting, again, for you guys to know this right off the top of your head, but as I type it, you guys should make sense of this. So I'm going to let all objects. Right now, they are separated objects. I'm actually going to make them an array. And there might be people here that think of a different way. I just thought of this on the spot last night, so I have not vetted every single possibility. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw them into an array. So these are objects that are inside of an array. And so to combine them all, I need to iterate over those 3. So I'm going to say let each object individually, each individual object in all objects. And then, okay, so this gets 1 object. So now inside here, I have object 1. Well, object 1, remember, has 4 different things in it. So I got to do another for loop. And here's the vocabulary that I'm going to use. Since these are objects, I'm going to say key. Because whenever I do a for in loop, it only gives me back the key of my object that I'm iterating through. Oh, is it? Thank you for catching the typos. Fine. All right, so 3 objects, put them all into a thing so that I can iterate over them. And then I'm going to say, go in the key, and then I want to add these to my object. So this is the format here is I'm going to retype this, but it should be your object name, your key that you want to assign, and then it's going to be your value. This is the template for assigning things inside of an object. And so my object name is this new combined object. The key is going to be the deer, which is the key here. That works. And then the value is going to be this thing right here. Well, how do I get inside of this? Well, the value is going to be inside my object, which is my object here. Because remember, this is an abstraction of all of these. So my value, I have to go inside my object. But my objects, all my objects, I want the object inside there. Actually, I think I need to do a for. This is me doing things on the spot. Hold on. Is it sorry, missed language. Maybe? Maybe. Let's test it. No, it still failed. Combined object. Why doesn't it want that? Type error. Oh, anybody know why it's not working? Yeah, I didn't export it. All right, now let's see if it'll at least run. Passed. There you go. So what it did, if you have an array, this grabbed the whole entire object. This did. That's the whole entire object because I used of an array. It grabs the whole entire element. And then you use in to go inside these, but it only gives you the key, and then you have to use the object key to actually get the value. So object key gives me the value. This is the value inside the individual object, but I'm assigning it, equaling it, to the new combined key. So this is the old object, and I'm assigning it into the new one, iterating over the whole entire thing. So, let me set some. Here's what I'll do. Let's see if my debugger actually works. Do you see how I have no inputs in here? So my debugger should work just fine. I'm going to show you what I do. I hit this JavaScript debug terminal. It pops it up over here. I still have to go back in because it resets a new terminal. I really don't know how I came across this, but I'm one that I push enough buttons that eventually something has to work. All right, so it stopped right here. I set a breakpoint right here. So you can see that object 1 is that, object 2 is this, object 3 is this. All objects is a list of all 3 of them. And these are my tests. And so if I go to the next line, object, that's the object. So the object is those 4 things. So this object is all 4 things. The key is not defined yet. So now my key is just the blue. So if my object is here, blue is just the key of that. So my new combined object, remember, I'm not actually getting this. I am setting this. So just remember, it's not actually pulling anything out of new combined object. I'm saying put inside new combined object and make blue be the key. And then what am I assigning to it? Well, it's the object at key blue. The object at key blue is color. That's what it's throwing in. I know somebody will want to see this. This is fine. What did I call it up here? Oh, words. Right. So this in my normal terminal, when I do node class 9, this is what my combined one looks like. It combined them all. Because remember, it went through blue, it found color. Right. Now that your brain already hurts, I'm going to add more to it. Here we go. If I'm doing true test development, design development, what I need to do is define out, well, what's the next thing in my test that I should test for? And again, I have my cheat sheet over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to test that the category objects, that is not declared right. Hold on. Let me use this one. The find categories, so I need to declare this find categories, should find only unique categories. For instance, if I threw in all these objects, I want a category array of and I remember I added that extra one, just the unique ones. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to write another function called, what did I tell you to call it? I said find categories. And I'm going to pass in that whole combined object. Combined object. I'm going to pass in this whole entire combined object, and it's going to get all the categories. This time I want an array, and I'm going to return that array. So I'm going to search through the combined objects, and anytime I find a category, I'm going to throw it into this blank thing. So the question is, would this be new combined object? And technically, yes, I'm going to use this new combined object to put it in here. But remember, these are sectioned out. So if I called new combined object right here, it actually wouldn't know what it is. Because remember, everything inside this function is contained inside this function. I'm segregating my my logic here. So I actually have to pass this in. That's a parameter. So I will be putting in my new combined object. But I have to assume that I actually did this. So it's going to give me a combined object, and I need to grab the categories off of it. So I'm going to say, because it is an object and not an array, I'm going to use the key in combined object to iterate through all of them. And I only want to put it in categories if the categories dot includes combined object. All right. I'm going to explain what I did here. So I looked at the categories, and right now it's blank. I'm going to see if the categories, as of right now, includes this value. Remember, this is the value of the key. I think that's the hardest part for some people to start remembering. So remember, if I have my combined object key, so if I go up here and this is my combined object, if my key was jazz, if I wrote this out, this would actually give me genre. The key would be jazz. The value would be genre. So if I said this jazz, this whole thing as a whole would print out genre. It gives me the value. If I pass in the key, it gives me the value. So I'm going to say, if this category does not include this, then go ahead and add it. But remember how in the objects, I would have to do something like key and value if this was an object. But categories is not an object. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to do the dot push. And I'm going to push this thing that it doesn't include. Or we've done the exclamation mark meaning not, right? Everybody's good there? Okay. So if it does not include this value, push it in there and then return it. So I think this code right here should work just fine. It goes for each of the items inside the object. It looks at the key. I use the key to find the value. I see if category already includes that value, and if it does not, I push it. You guys were talking about pseudocode. What I just spoke out loud is exactly what pseudocode is. Go inside the object, each item in the object, check to see if the value of that object is in categories, and put the value in categories. That what I spoke was pseudocode. Please start using that whenever you're talking about graded assignment 2. That's perfectly fine. All right. Let's run my test, because remember I have 2 tests. I have this find categories should find all the unique ones. Oh, that was not what I wanted. I wanted test. I'm not running this in the debugger. It said it failed. Why did it fail? I know why. It has no clue what that function is because down here I forgot to export it. Now let's run it again. It failed again. That's because right here it says I misspelled that. Do you see how those are supposed to be the same and they're not? It's almost like its own debugger. You just look at it and it tells you where to go. There we go. Test that thing again. And it passed. I know. I'm going to do one more. This is going to blow your mind, and then I'll be done. I'm going to do a lot of copying and pasting. The test is not perfect. So the test name is horrible because I guess I forgot to change it whenever I copied and pasted it. But what this is supposed to do is it's supposed to grab, make new object with categories as key. So what this is supposed to do is make an object. So remember, this is my combined object with everything. My category object is like this. So color is going to have an array of all these. Animal is going to have an array of all these. So now I'm switching the key and value and throwing all the keys underneath the categories. So I'm inversing those. And because we are a little short on time, I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to explain it rather than, actually, I did it a different way. So this is object 1, object 2, object 3. Not that, hold on. All right. And then I need to do something like this down here. Actually, I'm not doing it that way. This is going to be this is not going to make sense. I forgot to refactor this. Okay. I hope this will work. And I need to pass these in as an object there. Okay. So my new combined object, so when I categorize all these things, I need to create a new combined object that I'm going to call that combined objects function that combines all the things, and it's going to make me a new combined object. I'm going to have a new category object. That's the blank one that I'm initializing here and that I will return down here. So I'm going to return the new category object. And then inside, I'm going to build it. So the first thing I need to know is what are my keys even going to be? Because when you go through this thing, it's going to be hard to figure out the keys. So I'm going to go ahead and find the categories by calling that function that I just did, that I just made up here that goes and makes all the categories. So now I have a combined object. I have all the categories that I want to do. What then I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that combined object that I already made, that I just made, and I'm going to grab the key. It's just iterating through them. And if the new key object has a key in there, I'm going to assign it for the first time. What this, let me use better words than that. The first time that it finds animal, it's not going to have animal already in there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create inside my new category object the very first animal and throw in the very first animal, which might be deer or whatever else, right? The first time it does color, then this will be blue. But I need to initialize this as an array first. Now the next, if it already has blue in it, I don't need to set up a new one. I can just push to the existing one that it already knows. So that's what this is doing. Is this is setting up that my value can be that first array, and then after it knows that it's an array, then it can push to it every time afterwards. But it can't push to nothing. So I had to do this one first. After this, I will be done. I'm going to call this right here, console log, not console log. Well, I can do that. Hold on. Console log, new category. No, I'm going to call categorize objects. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to run this node. And so what it did, it made a new object. It got the categories, which was actually the keys or the values, and then it made an array of everything inside of it. All right. I'm going to run my test because that's the whole purpose of this thing, and then I'm going to let you get out of here because then I'm running a little late. So npm test. I will share this file with you. So the class 9 and the class 9 test, I will post whenever I post the YouTube thing. It said it failed. Guess what I did again? I got to export this thing again. Okay. Just one more time. There we go. I passed all my tests. So key things to take away, and then I'm done. First of all, did you see how I made the test first? Came up with examples of what would pass my test first, and I made my test first. I should have ran it to show you that it would fail, but it didn't even know what the functions was, so it obviously was going to fail. And then I created my thing, and then I checked my test, and I kept checking my test until I got it green. So remember, that's the red. You create your test, it won't pass. Green, you make your thing pass. And then if I had more time, or if I did something horrible and I could have refactored, I would have tried to refactor. So hopefully that explains the test-driven development, where you write the test first, then you write your code. And then hopefully you picked up some nuggets. Is that how it's pronounced, or is it nuggets? Never know. About how, and especially once I give this to you, if you have arrays you can push. If you don't, if you have objects, you need to assign your object like this, which again is object, key, and value, and your value is oftentimes your old object with the key.